So, today's topic, we will start with Creative Assembly deciding to put Total War 3 Kingdoms on sale and then stopping support of it, which is a classic goddamn move. Then we'll move on to talking a little bit about the Lord of the Rings TV show, because that is not being talked about enough. Because it's going to be massive. It's made by bloody Amazon. They've got enough money to literally invent actual elves to put in it. So that could be cool, but it's already got some of those worrying little usualnesses. We'll talk a little bit about Joker 2's quote-unquote reveal. And we've got a few games coming out too that are interesting, including Ashes of Creation's developer saying some very heartening things, honestly, on Reddit. So, Creative Assembly. A company that I have long had strong feelings about, from very positive back in the day to perhaps less entirely positive right now. Kyle is, of course, Creative Assembly's simp, so shall we hear from him first?
Yes, the Creative Assembly is a great company, and clearly this move is only to benefit the quality of their games. Yes, what? Just give them more money. Just give.
So the situation as it seems to stand is Creative Assembly put Total War 3 Kingdoms, their China historical, quote-unquote, Total War game, on sale. You do this to attract new customers. It's the only reason why you have a sale, obviously. And then, after having banked as many sales as they figured they could, they then announced that they were stopping all further content support for the game. So no new DLC expansions or anything like that, which is particularly galling since a lot of people had seen stuff like Korea added to the map and figured, right, that'll be next. Well, no, that will not be next. And finally, they also announced, apparently, that they now have a Total War 3 Kingdoms team that will be moving on to a new 3 project, presumably Total War 3 Kingdoms 2, which is not the most elegant of titles.
No. Honestly, this kind of shit is the reason why I hated Total War Warhammer with their whole puzzle thing. Like, oh, it'll combine together to make a better, bigger Total War. And I look at Total War Warhammer 2 and like, it's combined together and I have all the DLC. And it's even worse than the other Total Wars. What is this piece of shit in my store? Oh. Like, this is not good. 3 Kingdoms was already kind of off to a very rocky start, but I will give it this. It was somewhat entertaining in co-op. Could never play it by myself because modern Total Wars are fucking boring, but it was amusing if nothing else, right? And it was like, yeah, I'll probably play it again when they add Korea and they do the thing they said with like the Northern Expansion where they're hinting at Mongolia and stuff. Yeah, no, I'm kind of interested. Yeah, but then they did this, and I'm like, no, fuck you. I'm not gonna do that anymore. Like, that's dumb. That's absolutely stupid. They're selling a separate game, and the worst part is, on top of that, they already promised us stuff for this game, and it's not even finished. 3 Kingdoms Total War isn't even 3 Kingdoms yet. We're not even to the 3 Kingdoms period. The game itself is a fucking lie. You don't even get to the 3 Kingdoms period.
Amusingly enough. The thing here too is, right, it's been out for 2 years, okay, and it's been getting support for those 2 years. Paid support, mind you.
Yeah, expansions, DLCs, little things.
Even that, 2 years. That's not that long in a Total War game's lifecycle, or it didn't used to be that long. But they do seem to be moving into the Total War Warhammer style of doing things, where they'll push out a bunch of DLC, and then they'll actually make Total War Warhammer 2, which they'll charge you full price for. And here's the thing, yeah. In theory, I would not be theoretically opposed to this, so long as it actually did give us a bigger, more complete game experience. Because, all right, I get it. You got like 800 mouths to feed now, it's expensive. And making the biggest, bestest Total War game is expensive. I'd point then out quickly that Medieval fucking 2 has more features than modern Total War games. But hey, details, let's ignore that for a second, okay?
Hey, don't give them credit for that. That was mostly probably the Australian team anyways.
True. But the thing is, we see this with Total War Warhammer. they're just adding more factions. Like they're just adding more DLC content, essentially. They're not reworking siege battles. They're not adding in naval combat. They're not adding in substantial new mechanics. And hell, the mechanics they do add in is the underway. Point 2, point 3, point 4, point
Just
5.
reskinned. Every faction has access to it except for like a handful. Like,
Which
it's
are
a pointless mechanic. It's like, oh, you play as the Beastman. You can use the forest underway thingy mechanic in the middle of the desert. Like, okay. You play in as the dwarves. You can use the dwarven underway in the fucking lizardman land. It's like, okay, I guess dwarves are over here too.
And at some point, we gotta start asking the question, is this actually producing bigger, better Total War games? Like, for my opinion, I don't see them doing that. Like, what could Total War 3 Kingdoms 2 add that could not have been added as an expansion?
Yeah. They already were going to add in Korea. They already hinted at adding in Mongolia. And honestly, they could just keep making expansions. They could even add Japan on, the early pre-samurai era. They could add in all that stuff just as expansions. There's no need to make a new game. That is a pure greed thing. They want to charge $60 again, so that if you want the full complete experience, you have to buy 2 products. So let's say they do Total Warhammer, they make 3 Kingdoms 2 or whatever. Awful fucking name. You were so right.
Rolls right off the
It's fucking I'm having a hard time with that. 3K2. Fuck me. All right. You buy 3K2 and a bunch of new people enter the franchise with 3K2 and then they're hoping they'll go back and buy 3K1. This is a pure corporate greed thing. They want more money and they don't really give a shit about the quality of the product. And the worst part of it all is, okay, let's say they do add naval combat. All right, fair. That's one thing. But still, most of the heavy lifting is already done. When it comes to making goddamn games, like the game I'm working on, if I were to make a fucking sequel to it and I was to make it based on the same engine, there'd be some minor tweaks and modifications. So you really have to be like, okay, the amount of content that we're going to add here needs to be justifiable to be a sequel. Like, it's got to be good enough. Total War Warhammer 2 wasn't good enough. That one was not good enough. It's just the same mechanics, principally the same game engine, a lot of reused assets and textures and environmental prop pieces and stuff like that. There's very little new there, if anything, save for the factions. It was just a shitty little reskin, and people paid $60 for that. They ate it up because they're dumber than a box of rocks. And Creative Assembly knows that the casual audience are complete morons and will just buy it anyways. They don't care.
Well, that is actually kind of the interesting thing, because as Chap pointed out, the game is currently getting review bombed, because they courted, of course, the Chinese market. And the Chinese market, unlike a lot of us, don't put up with this shit. And every time CA has done anything to annoy them, they have seen the reviews of the game be hammered into the goddamn dirt. Now, it's not much. Does that affect Creative Assembly? Probably not, but it's something. It is a direct consumer action. The problem is, of course, that Steam then immediately goes, "Oh, this looks artificial. You can't do this." Like, okay, Steam. What other recourse is there? Don't know.
Review bombing is a perfectly justifiable thing. The thing is, if SJWs want to review bomb games, they can, but the people who actually care about the game will always be backing it up and supporting it. Like, honestly, if you own this game, you might as well give it a negative review now. I did today purely on principle, because while I enjoyed my time in 3 Kingdoms, I was like, yeah, you know what? It's kind of a guilty pleasure, actually. I have a little bit of fun with it. But now I'm infuriated, because it's like, okay, they're literally scamming us again. Like, why? Why can't they just do their goddamn job without fucking scamming us? Like, they have 800 people working for them. Please, fuck off. Like, I don't even care. They have 800 people. They produce content that's made, but feels like it's made by 1 or 5 guys. Like, it's so shitty and shallow. The music sucks ass. The quality of the combat sucks ass. The balancing's awful. They don't even have a new goddamn engine. They're using the same trash fucking Warscape engine we've been stuck with for how many goddamn years? This is bullshit. This can't be allowed to continue.
Point, I will offer one potential defense here for Creative Assembly. if we were to assume that they finally realized that their latest Warscape engine is a piece of hot garbage and virtually every problem of modern day Total War is in some way related to it. Unit collision, that's the Warscape engine. Terrible goddamn AI, the Warscape engine's limitations. The need to go back to hard scripted diplomacy because your fancy ass AI doesn't work. Warscape engine. Almost all of it can be tracked back to that awful, awful engine, which I remind you too, was created specifically because it would be modular, and then they killed all of the modding tools. But if we assume that they fucking realize that, I'm trying not to use the F word because YouTube doesn't use it, but
Whoops.
it just pops out automatically. It's such a good word.
It's fun.
It's such a good word.
It's satisfying.
Anywho, if they almost, if they then actually make a new engine, then you know what? Fine. At that case, I'll be like, okay, you wanted to make the actual Total War Three Kingdoms 2 game, but you needed a new engine to do it. All right. In which case, good, fine. But what are the odds? What are the odds they'll pick this time and a sequel to finally give us a new engine?
That's not gonna happen. It's that the thing is, this is cheap. I get what you're going for there, but like I can see the reasoning behind their decision making corporate wise. Like it's so fucking obvious. It's like, all right, we already have this Warscape engine. Our fans are fucking idiots. They just keep buying it. Sure they bitch, sure they moan, but they're dumb little fuckers. They'll just keep buying it, and we are. We're dumb, stupid fucks. We just keep buying it. Oops, I keep swearing. But that shit happens. But we just keep buying it. We're dumber than a box of rocks. Like all of us are. Fuck it.
Yeah, that is kind of the problem. And I am guilty of this too. Like, I've bought too much Total War Warhammer DLC. I have completely stopped now because I'm like, no. And I am not buying Total War Warhammer 3. I don't care that I am, well, used to be at least, literally a full-on Warhammer channel. I don't care. I am not picking up another $60 race pack. And what I want to add too is like Three Kingdoms, right? It promised so much. It promised it would actually give us more character personalities as well. That was one of their key marketing jumbos. And what do we see now? It's like, oh yes, 3K2 will focus more on the characters. Every time these same promises regurgitated, and it never appears. This is the curse of the casual market. All the new people just lap it up, and we're left sitting here like, this is less than I had. Like, even if it's, as you said, Kyle, they added in naval warfare. Cool. We'll get back a mechanic we saw first introduced in Empire Total War.
We'll pay for it. That's the worst part. Now, I am happy to see a lot of people say there is no we. Like, we don't do that. Like, a lot of people don't do that. You guys are good people. You are the heroes that are trying against a, like, the problem is there can be 100 of us, there can be 1,000 of us, there could be 10,000 of us that won't buy it, and that won't matter because the vast majority of people are casuals and they'll just eat that shit up. Like, they really need to step in it. Like with Three Kingdoms, they stepped in it here, and you need to drive that nail home now. When they step in it, you need to put your heel down on their throat and stomp, because now they're down. So if you own their game and you own this game, you should give it a negative review. You should be vocal. You should go on the forums. You should bitch. You should moan. Bitching and moaning is the only way your voice will be heard.
You can try to go on the forums.
They'll censor you. They do it all the time. I mean, I used to cover Total War like almost religiously when Total War was coming out, and that's when I started realizing that this company hates everybody. Like, because they just censor people. Like, why are you doing a Chaos DLC? And they're just like, ban. Like, okay. Okay.
And that's the thing too. Like, I want to point out this is critique coming from two people who absolutely love the Total War series and literally created channels for the express purpose, in my case, of covering a Total War game. And here we are sat like, I don't like this company anymore.
Yeah, it's kind of the sucky thing. Like, Total War is one of my favorite franchises. I think it's one of yours too. Like, that's how we met each other. We were both interested. We're both excited about Total War 1, and the whole Chaos controversy was how we met. And I remember, like, You were like one of the few people at the time that I met that was like, yeah, no, that's bullshit. Other people be like, well, they had to do it because the animation. It's like, no, they didn't. The game's barely got any animations in it to begin with. Like, okay, they swing their sword. Yeah, that's not a hard animation to make. I can tell you that right now. Now, what's hard to make, what would actually be a valid excuse, is like kill sync animations. Those things, because in a sprite game, in a 3D game, those are a bitch to make. Those are a bitch and a half.
Oh, yeah.
Making a simple stab, jab, like I've worked with plenty of animators now. That's not hard. That's easy. There's no excuse for that.
But kill animations, of course, is but one of the many mechanics that has been quietly stripped away. All right, so there we have it. Three Kingdoms Total War 2 is on the way after a nice little scummy move. Perhaps this will be the turning of the tide. We will see. I don't think it is. I think CA needs to make a really terrible game before we really see a swing. And the thing is, with the lowering expectations of people, I don't know if it'll happen.
The window's getting harder and harder to actually make. Like, you're absolutely right there. Total Warhammer 3, I sincerely hope it does fail. It won't, because there's too many simps that buy it. And it's too casual. It's like...
And it's just an expansion. Like, the game is already there. All they need to do is add a few factions.
It'd be remarkable if they fucked it up at this point. Like, all they need to do is do the bare minimum, and they can play it safe, and they can just keep coasting. Now, Troy, they're going to release quietly, hush-hush on the side, because the Bulgarian studio dropped the ball with that one. Oh my god, that was embarrassing. But, yeah, I just don't think it's going to go. Like, they need a disaster, and this is the biggest disaster we've had in a long time, and hopefully, this will help sabotage Three Kingdoms 2 as a project. Creative Assembly needs to rescind ceasing support on this. Increase support for Three Kingdoms as a whole. More developers should be developing and helping to expand the Three Kingdoms era and content. This game launched with no Three Kingdoms. I want to remind you guys that. It's $60, and they still haven't reached Three Kingdoms, and the eras are DLC. Like, your starting era is like the Rise of the Warlords, which, don't get me wrong, that's cool, like the little warlords rising up, but you don't even have Three Kingdoms. There's no Three Kingdoms in Three Kingdoms. Like, they have a chance to form, but, like, that's about it.